can't tell you how much I sympathize with the way everybody has had to endure this unbelievably testing and challenging time.
What if everything we thought we knew about King Charles was wrong? Behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace, whispers swirl like a storm on the horizon. A secret, one buried beneath decades of royal duty and public spectacle, may have finally surfaced. For years, the world speculated, questioned, and dissected every decision, every glance, every carefully measured word spoken by the man now wearing the crown. But now it seems the truth can no longer be ignored. Sources from deep within palace walls claim that King Charles has been grappling with a revelation, one that, if spoken aloud, could alter the way history remembers him. He has spent his life in the shadows of expectation, bound by rules written long before his birth. But behind closed doors, in the stillness of private reflection, something has changed. The weight of the crown is nothing compared to the weight of regret. For decades, he has been haunted by a choice. One decision that set into motion a chain of events that fractured his family, divided public opinion, and reshaped the monarchy itself. Was it the marriage that was never meant to be? The love that refused to be silenced? Or the fallout of a scandal so immense that even time could not erase its scars? Those closest to him say he has begun to speak of the past in ways he never has before. In hushed moments, away from cameras and courtly formalities, he has acknowledged what many have long suspected, that he made a mistake. That the course of his life, and perhaps the very fate of the monarchy, may have unfolded differently had he chosen another path. But why now? Why, after years of standing firm against speculation and scandal, would he finally admit to a truth so deeply buried? Some say it is the relentless passage of time, the realization that his legacy is no longer just his own, but a story that will be dissected by generations to come. Others whisper that the pressures of modern monarchy, the crumbling of traditions once thought unbreakable, have left him with little choice but to confront the past. And then there is the most haunting question of all. Is this admission a sign of personal reckoning, or a desperate attempt to reclaim control over a narrative that has always slipped just beyond his grasp? Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. If these whispers are true, the world is about to see King Charles in a way it never has before. But to understand the depth of this confession, we must go back to where it all began. The love triangle that changed history. It was supposed to be a fairy tale, a royal love story written in golden ink, sealed with vows beneath the grandeur of St. Paul's Cathedral. The world watched in awe as Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer stood side by side, exchanging promises that seemed destined to last a lifetime. But fairy tales are illusions, and behind the polished smiles and regal waves, cracks had already begun to form. This was not a marriage built on love. It was a duty, a carefully orchestrated arrangement designed to uphold the monarchy's image. Diana, young and radiant, was chosen not because she was the love of Charles's life, but because she fit the role, the innocent aristocratic bride, beloved by the people, the perfect future queen. She was everything the royal family wanted, except for one thing. She wasn't Camilla. Long before Diana entered the picture, Charles's heart had belonged to another. Camilla Parker Bowles was the woman he had always loved, the one he had confided in, the one who understood the man beneath the crown. But Camilla was deemed unsuitable. She was not the untouched, pure bride the palace demanded, and so the heir to the throne was forced to choose duty over desire. But desire does not die easily. As Charles and Diana embarked on their new life together, the public was enthralled. Their wedding had been broadcast to millions, and their every move was dissected and celebrated. They looked like the perfect couple, a symbol of hope for the monarchy's future. But behind the palace doors, a different reality played out. Diana was adored by the people. Her warmth, her charisma, her ability to connect with the public made her a star in her own right. But for Charles, that adoration cast a long shadow. He was born to be the center of attention, yet here was his wife, effortlessly eclipsing him. The world had fallen in love with Diana, and Charles resented it. Meanwhile, Camilla never truly left his life. She was always there, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in the shadows, but always present. And Diana knew it. She felt it. The distance between them was growing, suffocating. Then came the moment that shattered the illusion entirely. Diana, in a now infamous interview, uttered the words that confirmed what many had suspected, but few dared to say out loud. There were 3 of us in this marriage. It was the moment that changed everything. The world saw the cracks in the fairy tale. They saw the loneliness in Diana's eyes, the pain of a woman trapped in a marriage that was never hers to begin with. The public, once enchanted by the royal couple, began to take sides. Diana became the wronged princess, and Charles the man who had betrayed her. The love triangle that had been hidden for so long was now out in the open, and the consequences would shake the monarchy to its core. But Charles wasn't the only one who saw the cracks forming. His father, Prince Philip, saw it coming long before the world did. Prince Philip was no stranger to royal drama. He had spent decades navigating the complexities of the monarchy, understanding better than anyone the delicate balance between duty and personal sacrifice. But even he saw trouble ahead, trouble that could shake the very foundation of the royal family. Long before the public knew the full truth, before Diana's heartbreaking revelations, and before the world turned against Charles, Philip had warned his son. His words were not just advice, they were a dire prediction, a glimpse into a future Charles was too blind to see. Philip had always believed in the institution above all else. In his eyes, duty came before happiness, before love, before personal desires. It was the price of the crown, an unspoken rule that every member of the royal family had to abide by. But Charles was different. His heart had always been torn between responsibility and longing, between the expectations placed upon him and the woman he could never truly let go of. And Philip saw the danger in that. In private letters exchanged between Philip and Diana, letters revealed only after her passing, one thing became clear. Philip had been deeply aware of the cracks in his son's marriage from the very beginning. He sympathized with Diana's struggles, acknowledging the pain of a young woman thrust into an impossible role, but he also recognized something even more troubling: Charles' inability to sever ties with Camilla Parker Bowles. To Philip, this wasn't just a personal failing, it was a threat. A future king entangled in a forbidden love affair was more than just scandalous, it was destructive. The monarchy thrived on stability, on the illusion of perfection, on a carefully maintained image that could not afford to be shattered. But Charles's attachment to Camilla was dangerous. It wasn't something that could be ignored, hidden, or dismissed. Philip reportedly warned his son, cautioning him that continuing his relationship with Camilla would have dire consequences. It wouldn't just cost him his marriage, it would cost him the respect of the people, the trust of his family, and the very future of the monarchy itself. But Charles didn't listen. Or perhaps he simply couldn't. Whether out of arrogance, desperation, or an unshakable belief that love should conquer all, he ignored the warnings. He convinced himself that he could have both his marriage to Diana and his connection to Camilla, that he could uphold his royal duties while keeping the woman he truly loved in the shadows. But Philip knew better. He had seen history repeat itself too many times and had witnessed the downfall of those who placed their desires above the crown, and now his son was walking straight into disaster. Charles' decisions didn't just impact his marriage, they left lasting scars on his family and the monarchy itself. Every decision has consequences. Some are fleeting and easily forgotten, others leave scars, deep, permanent, and impossible to erase. For King Charles, the price of his choices went beyond himself. It shattered his family. When Diana's world crumbled, the public saw only one man to blame: Charles. The betrayal, the whispers of infidelity, and the confessions that confirmed what many had already suspected, all led to one unavoidable truth. The prince, once seen as the future of the monarchy, had become its greatest scandal. The backlash was swift, the fairy tale was over, and Charles wasn't the hero, he was the villain. The press devoured every painful detail, splashing it across headlines, turning a family's private heartbreak into an international spectacle. Overnight, the carefully crafted image of the royal family had been tarnished, and at the center of it all, 2 young boys were left to navigate the wreckage. Prince William and Prince Harry weren't just bystanders in the unraveling of their parents' marriage, they were casualties. The bitterness, the accusations, and the painful divide seeped into their childhoods, shaping the way they saw love, duty, and even their place within the monarchy. Diana, their guiding light, had tried to shield them from the storm, but the storm was relentless. And then, the unimaginable happened. Diana was gone. In a moment, the woman who had carried the weight of the public's love, who had fought against an institution she felt had abandoned her, was lost forever. The world mourned, but no one grieved more than her sons. Charles, the man at the heart of it all, was now left to pick up the pieces of a family that had already been breaking long before tragedy struck. But could he? The distance between him and his children only grew. Harry, the boy who had walked behind his mother's casket, would one day walk away from the monarchy itself, citing the same pain that had once haunted Diana. William, the future king, carried the burden of legacy, the weight of duty that Charles had struggled with himself, and between them, the fractures deepened. Even as king, Charles still battles the ghosts of his past. Every decision, every regret, every whispered criticism, it all lingers. The monarchy has survived wars, betrayals, and revolutions, but could it survive the damage done within its walls? But through it all, one person has remained by his side, Camilla, and her growing influence is raising eyebrows. Once, she was the most hated woman in Britain, the woman who had haunted the fairy tale, the woman blamed for breaking Diana's heart, for shattering the illusion of the perfect royal marriage. Camilla Parker Bowles was the villain in a story where Diana was the tragic heroine. The public despised her, the press tore her apart, and for years the idea of her ever being queen was unthinkable. But power is a patient game, and Camilla played it well. Today, she is Queen Camilla, standing beside the man who was once forbidden to love her. It is the ultimate reversal of fate, but has her influence over King Charles gone too far? Insiders whisper that Charles depends on Camilla more than anyone else, that she is not just his wife but his closest advisor, the one voice he trusts above all others. Some say she is the only person who truly understands him, the only one who has ever understood him. Others fear she holds a level of control that no queen consort before her has ever wielded. Rumors swirl that she has a say in major royal decisions, and that her influence stretches far beyond what the public sees, and in the eyes of many, that influence comes at a cost. The growing rift between Charles and Prince Harry has left deep fractures in the royal family, but some believe Camilla's presence has only made it worse. Reports suggest that she played a role in the widening gap between father and son, and that her position within the palace has created tensions that may never be repaired. Harry himself has not hidden his feelings about her, once calling her dangerous and accusing her of manipulating public perception. But is she truly responsible for the divide, or is she simply an easy target in a family that has been breaking apart for years? Then, there is Prince William, the future king. Unlike his brother, William has remained measured, careful, unwilling to air private grievances in public, but behind the palace doors, his feelings about Camilla's role remain a mystery. He was raised knowing that Diana was the people's princess, the mother they adored, and yet here is Camilla, now holding the title of queen. Does he accept it? Does he resent it? Or is he too playing the long game, waiting for the day when the crown will finally be his? The monarchy has always been about preserving tradition, but Charles' reign faces an entirely new challenge, a generation that is beginning to question whether the monarchy should exist at all. The British monarchy has survived wars, scandals, and betrayals. It has withstood invasions, revolutions, and the shifting tides of history. But today, it faces an entirely new kind of threat, one it may not be able to conquer. Public skepticism. For centuries, the monarchy was untouchable, a symbol of power, tradition, and continuity. But times have changed, and the question now being asked is not about the next king, but whether there should be a king at all. Younger generations are no longer enchanted by crowns and castles. To them, the monarchy is an institution of the past, a relic in a world that has moved forward. Polls reveal a steady decline in royal favorability, especially among the youth. The old sense of reverence, the unwavering devotion, is fading. And Charles, the man who waited his entire life to wear the crown, has inherited an institution at a time when many believe it no longer serves a purpose. How does he plan to secure the monarchy's future? Charles knows that his reign is not just about ruling, it's about proving that the monarchy is still relevant, that it is more than just a spectacle. But can he? His approval ratings pale in comparison to those of his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Where she was a symbol of endurance, he is seen as a man burdened by past mistakes, struggling to define his legacy. And the weight of this responsibility doesn't rest on his shoulders alone. All eyes are already on Prince William, the future king, the one who must modernize the monarchy if it is to survive. His leadership will determine whether the institution adapts or crumbles under the pressure of changing times. His wife, Princess Catherine, remains one of the most beloved figures in the royal family, a connection to the public that Charles himself has never quite achieved. But before Charles can think about the monarchy's future, he must first mend the wounds of his past. A father and his sons, once united by blood, are now divided by wounds too deep to ignore. The world watched as Prince Charles ascended the throne, but beneath the grandeur of his coronation lay an undeniable truth. His family was fractured. His sons stood apart, not just in distance, but in loyalty, in trust, in understanding. And the question remains, can Charles ever repair what's broken? The tension between Charles, William, and Harry is no secret. The cracks began forming long before the world took notice, hidden beneath years of royal protocol and carefully managed appearances. But when the truth finally surfaced, it was impossible to contain. Harry's revelations shattered the illusion of unity. His interviews, his memoirs, and his raw, unfiltered accusations painted a portrait of a family bound not by love, but by obligation. He spoke of neglect, of pain, of a childhood where duty took precedence over emotion. He described a father who was distant, a family that failed to protect him, a system that left him no choice but to walk away. And once he left, there was no turning back. For Charles, it was a public reckoning like no other. He had spent his life fighting for public acceptance, for a chance to prove himself as a leader. But now, he was being forced to confront something far more personal, his failures as a father. William, ever the dutiful heir, remained silent. But silence does not mean indifference. Behind the composed facade, there were wounds just as deep, just as painful. Diana's legacy loomed large between them all. The memory of a mother who had shielded them, who had fought against the very institution that Charles was now leading, and that memory was impossible to ignore. The contrast between the brothers was stark. One, a future king, bound to the institution their mother once feared. The other was a prince who had abandoned it altogether, choosing freedom over tradition, and in the middle is their father, a man torn between his duty to the crown and his responsibility to his children. Does Charles regret how he handled his son's struggles? Does he see, now, the damage that was done? And more importantly, is there still time to fix what has been broken? The monarchy has endured centuries of turmoil, but never before has its greatest challenge come from within. The fate of the royal family no longer rests solely on Charles's shoulders. It rests on whether he can heal the wounds that threaten to divide it forever. As Charles reflects on his past, one question remains. Can he rewrite his legacy before it's too late? The crown may be secure, but Charles's legacy is not. He has waited a lifetime for the throne and endured scandals, betrayals, and the relentless scrutiny of the public. But now, as he stands at the helm of a monarchy that feels more fragile than ever, one question lingers. Has he finally realized the cost of his choices? Insiders whisper that Charles is facing his greatest reckoning yet, not with politicians or the press, but within himself. In the quiet moments behind palace doors, away from the carefully curated public image, those closest to him claim he is reflecting on the past in ways he never has before. The weight of his regrets, the consequences of decisions made decades ago, are no longer avoidable. His marriage to Diana was supposed to secure the future of the monarchy. Instead, it nearly destroyed it. His devotion to Camilla was seen as a betrayal, one that turned the nation against him. His relationship with his sons, now strained and distant, has become a reminder of the fractures he could never quite repair. And yet, his reign is not just about the past, it is about survival. The monarchy has always endured, bending but never breaking. But for the first time, it is not external forces that pose the greatest threat. It is the shifting tide of public perception. Polls show that faith in the royal family is waning. The younger generation is no longer bound by tradition, willing to accept the monarchy as an unquestioned institution. Charles knows he must do more than just wear the crown, he must justify it. He must prove that the monarchy is not a relic of the past, but an evolving force in the present. The question is, can he? Can he repair the ties that have been frayed within his own family? Can he mend the divide with his youngest son, whose departure sent shockwaves through the palace? Can he win back the hearts of a public that still sees him as the man who broke a princess? Or will history remember him as a ruler who lost too much, too late? Only time will tell if Charles can turn regret into redemption. What do you think? Has Charles finally admitted the truth we suspected all along? Let us know in the comments below.